Have you ever really thought about what it means to be ready for something you just can't predict? In this explainer, we're going to zoom in on just 10 verses from the end of Matthew chapter 24, and they are powerful. They give us a direct command and two really vivid stories all about being ready, about our responsibilities, and about the pretty serious consequences of not being prepared. All right, let's dive in. So this first verse we're looking at is, well, it's the cornerstone for everything else that's about to happen. It's a single, straight-to-the-point command that sets the stage for the two big stories Jesus is about to tell. It really sets a tone of urgent warning.
Now, to really get the weight of verse 42, we've got to understand the context. Jesus was talking to his disciples on the Mount of Olives, and he was warning them about something huge, the coming destruction of Jerusalem. This was a massive, devastating judgment that was going to happen in their lifetime, around 70 AD. But here's the thing, while that warning was super specific for them, the principle behind it, well, that's timeless. It's a call for every single one of us to be spiritually ready, because the day we're called to account is always completely unknown.
To really hammer this point home, this idea of unpredictability, Jesus immediately uses this powerful and honestly kind of jarring analogy. Let's see how he builds on this idea. So in verses 43 and 44, he gives us this incredible comparison. Think about it. A thief doesn't send you a calendar invite, right? He shows up when you absolutely least expect him. That element of total surprise, that's the entire point. It directly connects the thief's random arrival to the coming of the Son of Man in judgment. So who is this good man of the house? Well, metaphorically, it's any follower, anyone who's been tasked with being spiritually on guard. And this isn't about just passively waiting around. It's about active stewardship. It's the responsibility to manage and protect what you've been given. I mean, if this homeowner knew the exact time the thief was coming, getting ready would be easy, but that's just not how it works, is it? So here's the bottom line. This little story isn't really about thieves. It's about the absolute certainty that the Lord's judgment is coming, combined with the total uncertainty of when. The message is crystal clear. You can't just scramble to get ready at the last minute. Being ready has to be a constant state of being. Okay, so Jesus just established the when, or more accurately, the fact that we can't know when. Now he pivots to the how. How exactly are you supposed to watch? He tells another story, and this time he contrasts two totally different servants and how they handle their duties. He kicks things off in verse 45 with a question, which kind of invites us to picture the ideal person here. So what does this faithful and wise servant actually look like? Well, the best way to understand him is to see him next to his total opposite. So the parable lays out these two completely different paths. One path is all about responsibility and care, followed by a servant who acts like his boss could walk through the door at any second. The other path, it's defined by neglect and abuse, and it's all driven by this really dangerous idea that there's plenty of time to mess around. Let's look a little closer at what the faithful servant actually does. First, he's given some real authority. He's made ruler over the whole household. And what does he do with that power? He just consistently does his job. He takes care of everyone else, giving them meat in due season. He's not doing anything spectacular. He's just doing what he was supposed to be doing all along.
And wow, look at the reward in verses 46 and 47 for this simple faithfulness. The master comes back, finds him just doing his job, and promotes him. He goes from managing the household to being the ruler over all of the master's goods. Being faithful in the small things leads to this incredible blessing and greater responsibility.
But what about that other path? Starting in verse 48, the story takes a really dark and chilling turn. Let's look at the mindset and then the actions of the wicked servant.
The whole problem, the root of this servant's downfall that we see in verses 48 and 49, it all starts with a single corrupting thought. My Lord is taking a long time to come back. That one assumption gives him permission to become abusive and totally self-indulgent. He starts beating the other servants and partying with drunkards. He completely stops serving others and starts serving himself, hurting the very people he was supposed to protect. And bam! Just like with the thief, that theme of unexpectedness comes roaring back in verse 50. The servant's calculation was just disastrously wrong. The delay he was banking on was a total fantasy, and the master shows up precisely when the servant is at his absolute worst, completely unprepared to be held accountable. The judgment in verse 51 is, it's unbelievably swift and severe. That phrase, cut him asunder, it paints a picture of a violent, final separation. His end is to be thrown out with the hypocrites into a place described by one of the most sobering phrases in all of Scripture.
And that phrase, of course, is weeping and gnashing of teeth. Yeah, this isn't a minor punishment, not just a slap on the wrist. It's describing a state of deep, irreversible suffering and agony, the ultimate consequence for someone who knew exactly what his duty was, but chose to ignore it, all because he thought he could get away with it.
So, let's step back for a second. What do we take away from this really intense passage? Jesus packs a direct command and two powerful parables into just 10 verses. What is the ultimate message he's trying to get across here?
What we see is that this warning is kind of working on two levels. For the disciples who were actually there listening, it was a literal, urgent warning about the judgment coming on Jerusalem. But for us, today, it's still this powerful, timeless call to live in a state of constant readiness, to do our duties faithfully, because our own day of accounting is just as certain and it's just as unpredictable.
And in the end, these stories push a question right back onto us. It's not just about waiting around, but about how we wait. Are we being that wise servant, the one who is diligently taking care of business? Or have we maybe let that thought of a delay make us a little bit careless? It's a warning to watch that is just as relevant today as it was the moment it was first spoken.